Yeah. We can't do this.
We must move forward.
Yes, I'm ready for that, like Vegas smoke. Blow up.
I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I will ask for a roll call.
Stanislaus County. Here. City of Ceres.
Here.
City of Houston. City of Modesto.
Here.
City of Newman. City of Oakdale. City of Patterson. City of Riverbank.
Here.
City of Turlock.
Here.
And City of Waterford.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? Nope, seeing none. We'll move on to the consent calendar. 4A, motion to approve the Management and Finance Committee meeting minutes of February 4th, 2026.
Stanislaus County move to approve.
I have a second.
Second Riverbank.
A motion from Stanislaus County and a second from Riverbank. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Noes, seeing none. Move on to 5A, toll credit strategy. Jose Luis.
Good afternoon. We're testing out a new remote today. This item was presented yesterday to the Technical Advisory Committee with, I think, no comment. Going to go ahead and present it to you folks today. Thank you, Chair. So this item is the toll credit strategy. I had some fun with the pictures. A little tidbit or a little bit of history is the highway system, the United States highway system was supposed to originally be funded with tolls because that was the most direct way to connect the users of the system to the expenses of the system. But the mafia got hold of tolling, and so the federal government said, no, it's much easier to go to the pump. But we still have tolls in California, and thanks to those tolls, we get something called toll credits. I pulled this. I did not make this awesome image. The Federal Highway Administration has its own page where it talks about what are toll credits. And you could read this on your own, but essentially toll credits are like a soft match that our local agencies are able to use. And yeah, so toll revenue gets collected by, let's just think Golden Gate Bridge. That toll revenue gets reinvested back into the transportation system. The federal government, the reason why the federal government requires a match to its federal funds is they want to make sure that we have skin in the game, that we're actually spending our own money for these transportation projects. And we can prove that to them by saying we're collecting tolls on our own motorists and we're putting those tolls right back into the system. And so the federal government goes, well, prove it, and we do. And then they say, okay, well, that dollar amount of tolls, we will not require you to match your federal funds up to that dollar amount. You can take credit for all those tolls that you've been using. It says, I believe in this next slide, I love the FH, oh, is it? Maybe it was this slide. Sorry. And might be here. Yeah, there it is, an exclamation mark. So the feds also use exclamation marks when talking about toll credits. These are not money. Toll credits are not money. They're just credit that you get to take that, and you get to tell the public, look, or the feds, we have skin in the game. Please don't make us match these federal dollars with local dollars. You can use tolls on local interstate transit systems. This is an interesting little fact. In the United States, if you count our two protectorates, 31 out of 52 states use toll credits. $37 billion of toll credits exist in the United States as of 2023. Now, California has its own history of toll credits. This image, we did not have toll credits back when this image was taken, but we've had toll credits since 2007 when we took credit for 5.7 billion in tolls that were being put back into our system. Caltrans came up with a policy that said, so we have 5.7 billion in toll credits. Go ahead, everybody, use them. Specifically, they said regions. You guys program your FTIPs. When you program your FTIPs, go ahead. Sorry, that's the Federal Transportation Improvement Program you've heard me talk about. You can use toll credits in there. If regions want to set their own policies, they may. Our interim executive director, Kate, comes from the Bay Area. The Metropolitan Transportation Commission has a toll credit policy where they basically require everyone to still match their federal funds unless they can show that they're in a disadvantaged community or meet other criteria. I came from Sacramento. We didn't really have a toll credit policy. Here at Stancog, we don't have a toll credit policy. And you don't need one when there's $5.7 billion of toll credits out there. However, it's now 2026 and a shortfall is predicted. I got these statistics from the Federal Highway Administration. In 2020, there was only 1.69 billion of toll credits left. And that dwindled with at a steady rate down to 1.3.
Jose Luis, just sorry, real quickly.
Yep.
Why don't you tell them how we use the toll credits and why this is important?
Sure, absolutely. Transit operators use it the most. Transit operators, when they get 5307 funds, that's Federal Transit Administration 5307, they're required to match either at 20% or at 50% when they do operating assistance, preventive maintenance, purchase of buses. And so they have to use their own local funds, TDA or fares. But with toll credits, they don't have to. They can save their local money and use it for other purposes. They can use it for bus stops. Basically, it frees up their local funds to do locally funded projects and not have to follow the federal aid process. The rest of us, roadway projects, bikeway projects, it allows our local agencies to maximize the federal funds on fewer projects and not have to spread it across so many. Does that answer the question? That was that exclamation, not money, not money. So if you get $1 million from the feds and you want to do $1 million project, the federal government would normally say, no, you can only spend $800,000 on that $1 million project. You're gonna have to put $200,000 of your own local skin, your own local funds in the game. Toll credits, we get to waive it like a get out of jail free card and say, actually, I don't think so. I think we'll just spend the whole 1 million on this $1 million project. However, if Stancog gives you, the local agency, only $800,000 to do a $1 million project, toll credits doesn't magically fill in the gap between the $800,000 funding and the $1 million cost. But if you found $200,000 of other federal funds, yes, you could use it and not have to fulfill the requirements of toll credits. So this slide says that Caltrans is finally getting its act together to renew the toll credits. It's been, was that 19 years? They expect that they could get a renewal in by 2029. However, they've given us looks like someone's coming in. They've given us a cap for the next 3 years. For the years, I'm sorry, I meant to change the slide. For the year 26 that we're in, 27 and 28, not 27 to 30, but for these 3 years, we have been capped at $4,113,902 in toll credits. Those aren't real dollars, they're just credits. Annually, that comes out to about 1.4 million. We met with our local agencies, we met with our transit operators, asked, can anyone voluntarily reduce their toll credit usage? And after those conversations, I can tell you that our estimated usage in 2026 is under 1 million, 924,000. So that means if we use that much in this year, we'll still have 3 million in change for the following years. That means we have about 500,000 left for this year if we were trying to use that amount annually. So what this means is voluntarily we're able to stay within that toll credit allotment that local assistance has given us. But there's uncertainty ahead. We don't actually know how much toll credits are going to be needed to be used in the next 2 years, 27, 28. This funding round we're in the middle of a funding round right now to program about $90 million of CMAQ and STBG funds. Most of those applicants are coming in with local match, but I think they were hoping to use their local match in the PE phase and then do construction with 100% federal funds using toll credits. We would need to work with those successful applicants to make sure that they're either using their own funds to local match it, or they're waiting until 2029 when we might actually have more toll credits. Transit operators were very willing to cooperate this year to reduce their usage of toll credits. I would need to confirm whether they can keep that going for the next 2 years. And then we also don't know if Caltrans will be successful in getting the new toll credits on their schedule. There looks like there could be opportunity to borrow toll credits from other regions. Like I said, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, they have a pretty strict policy on toll credits. They're not going to use them all. They might be able to loan them to other regions. So what this really means is, will Stancog need a toll credit policy? If things continue the way we did this year, we won't need a policy. And that is our strategy. The strategy is to keep working with our local agencies, see if we can continue to keep our usage voluntarily within the limits that Caltrans has suggested for us, continue to coordinate transit operators. When we get through the funding round, ensure that our successful applicants are coming up with matching funds for their upcoming work, monitor and report back to this committee and the TAC. And if we can stay, the punchline is if we can stay below the threshold, there's no need to develop a policy for toll credits that we will have plenty of. Yes.
And Jose Luis touched on why this is so important for your jurisdictions, especially for those project sponsors who used all of their local funds to develop the project, and now there may not be any matching funds. And so again, these toll credits tick that box that you've met the matching funds. It's not new money, it's not additional money, but without them, the project budgeting is a little bit challenged. So Jose Luis is going to continue to work with the jurisdictions on it. I think some of the good news is part of the programming hasn't been done. And so a lot of that can be do some horse trading on the SCPC MAC program. But at the end of the day, if Jose Luis is negotiating with your teams, doesn't work, we're going to have to develop a policy. And then everybody that was counting on toll credits is going to have to identify potentially other means to meet that match requirement. So it's kind of confusing, but I just want to make sure it was clear and you understood what the biggest challenge was.
Any questions?
All right, are there any questions? All right, seeing none. Any questions from the public? All right, I will bring it back to the committee for any comments or potential motion. No motion, just I'm gonna get this one of these days. Of course, my term's almost over, so I'll figure it out right before I'm done. Okay, 5B, annual listing of obligated projects, federal fiscal year 2025.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia So, and I'll be presenting the annual listing of obligated projects for federal fiscal year 2025. So just for some background context on this report, when the federal government obligates funds, they are essentially making a commitment to repay eligible transportation projects. As the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we're measuring these obligations and using them as a metric to measure transportation project delivery. In total, we have obligated money to 44 projects, and that totaled up to $68 million in 2025. This chart shows how much money each agency got last year. And as you can see, Stanislaus County was obligated the most money, totaling to about 50% of all the obligated funds. This next slide shows a chart that that just gives us a better visual of how much money each agency got. And as stated before, and as you can see, Stanislaus County got the vast majority of those funds. This chart shows obligations by improvement types. So we took all the projects that were obligated funds and then divided them into different categories. As you can see here, the top three were bridge, transit, and maintenance and operation projects. All those three project types total to around 80% of all the projects obligated. Bridge especially was the number one with $25 million obligated to them, and there was a very good reason for that. This is the Timbell Road over Dry Creek Bridge. it was obligated $19 million last year. It's a very large project and is one of the main reasons why bridges were obligated so much money in 2025 as like a category whole. It was also headed by Stanislaus County, which is another contributing factor as to why they had so much money obligated to them last year. And then this is a pie graph showing how much, just giving a better visual demonstration of how much money was obligated to each project type. And as you can see, transit, bridges, and maintenance and operations took the vast majority of the pie. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? Doesn't look like it. Any comments from the public? No. All right, no motion here either. All right. You. We'll now move on to C, fiscal year 25-26 overall work program amendment number 2.
Yes, thank you. So we brought this item to you last month, but before we took this item to our policy board, we identified some omissions of revenues that we wanted to bring back to you so that we can go ahead and program it into our budget for this is for 24-25. You'll see there the SB 125 monies for 64,643,565 and the REAP money that for 353,600. We also there was an error in our total salaries and benefits that we corrected. And with that, those are the changes, the modifications that we found and wanted to bring back to you for your consideration.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does. Sorry.
All right, any questions, staff?
I have a question real quick. Since this was placed on the agenda and everything, but we didn't have access to the link, do we move forward with that? Because that link wasn't available until I think today.
The link goes, the link should have been available to the members. If it went to like for yourself, vice chair, you would have been able to get to it. The link, there was a mistake made and then the link wasn't made available to the public. So anyone outside this group couldn't get it. But the link was to the actual working document, the narrative, not to the schedules.
But why wasn't it available to the public? Because it's supposed to be available to the public as well, I thought.
Yes, there was a mistake there, yes.
So since it wasn't available, then we can't move forward with this?
I would defer to Monica on that.
It's not clear. I mean, we have a Brown Act obligation to agendize stuff, but it doesn't mean that we can't come back with like errata information. And that shouldn't prohibit our ability to act on this, but it's, obviously your discretion on how you want to handle it. And we can bring it back next month if we're going to, split those hairs that way.
Yeah, I would just say that this is due to Caltrans as soon as possible. So if we can move forward, that would be great on this item.
And if I'm understanding you correctly, this is being brought back from last month to correct the errors that were the original attachment.
Yes, Chair, you're correct.
They added stuff. Is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gene, but it's omission of revenue sources from SB 125 REAP and local interest, and also the schedule was for salaries is wrong, but those weren't included in Amendment 1. They're now included in Amendment 2, correct?
They
Weren't included in Amendment 1.
They were, so they're in Amendment 1 right now.
The staff report you presented to us last month, Amendment 1 did not include SB 125 REAP or local interest, correct?
Correct, yes.
So this has been added.
Yes.
Last.
Yes, it's a correction.
Understood. So, I mean, it's identified in the staff report. We just don't have the documents. I mean, I'm not overly overly concerned, but I'll talk to any other questions from the committee. Anybody else have concerns of that?
No concerns for me. I actually downloaded this yesterday afternoon, so I know it's been available for more than 24 hours. I just don't know. And again, I think it's correct in the fact that, oh, gone. Oh, I'm sorry. I think she's correct in that we can make minor tweaks at the dais.
All right. Any other questions of staff? I'll open this up to the public. Anybody?
Mr. Chair, we have a comment from Karen Kinsey online.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Karen Kinsey Dunger, and I used to be the manager of financial services for StanCog for 11 years, and my career ended in 2023, February. I've been following some of the financial reporting and staff reports since leaving the COG. Today, Jean Folletta has brought this OWP amendment for your consideration. I have some questions for Ms. Folletta regarding the schedules and additional administrative operating costs that she has proposed. On Schedule 2, there's a reduction of $366,000 to your operating budget, removing an indirect cost allocation figure. Based on your most recent audit posted for fiscal year 22-23, it notes you are currently utilizing a 10% diminish rate to recover your administrative and overhead costs. And I'm wondering how you're achieving a zero carryover when you have had less than adequate recovery rates to cover these costs. In my previous years with StanCog, the last year of being 21-22, the ICAP rate at that time was 116.45%. So dropping to a 10% seems like you'll be losing money from revenue for quite a while, or have been. Your increase of $843,000 to your operating budget, I'd like to know how you're covering those costs, because normally these costs would have been incorporated into the agency's ICAP rate. But given that you haven't had an audit approved since 2023, it would be difficult for you to be applying for an approval from Caltrans without that. So you must still be using the 10%. And then on Schedule 3, you're representing a funding surplus of $5.48 million. And this appears to be somewhat misleading, since the majority of these funds appear to be from CMAQ and REAP, which, as you know, are restricted funds that cannot directly fund any kind of administrative costs that are not associated to those two programs. And then my last question is regarding Amendment number 1. I'd like to know when that was brought to the Policy Board, because the resolution that's attached to that online has an April of 2025 date, which would have been appropriate for your original budget resolution, but the true-up that you normally would apply as your first amendment does not come until after August, when your certification of expenditures has been validated by Caltrans. So the language in that same resolution also refers to amendment number 2. So I'm not really sure it was even appropriate for the original OWP for which it was passed. So I would also have more questions, but as has already been mentioned, the link to your OWP is not working. I was not able to actually view the tables of your OWP to see where the funding resources are coming from. But I do believe that my questions should raise some serious concerns with the Management and Finance Committee. And without seeing funding tables in the OWP to support this amendment, I would encourage them to either vote down this item, or you should move it forward without your approval. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Jean, were you able to get those
Yeah,
questions?
the big question was about the ICAP rate. And yes, we are using the prior ICAP rate that we had used in the past. We have not been able to get a new Caltrans ICAP rate. So we are using that. There was a couple of other questions. I think there were more comments than questions that Ms. Dunger raised. I understand what she is saying, but I would disagree that what you have before you is accurate now. That's why we made the changes. And needs to get to Caltrans, who Caltrans will also look at this document. It's not just us looking at it, it's a document that goes to Caltrans. They'll take a look. If there is a mistake there with the funding, as she said, they will pull it out and not let us go forward with it. So there's an additional, if you will, uh, oversight other than just this agency. It's so that would conclude my responses.
When is it due to Caltrans?
It was due. We were supposed to get it to them on Tuesday, and that was an extension. We asked for an extension. What we're trying to do here, the big thing here is to capture the carryovers from last year and put them into the budget so that we can actually spend down on them.
How long is the extension?
To get to Caltrans till Friday.
When's the policy board meet?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm confusing my, no, this would go to the exec and then the policy board.
But when does it do? You got an extension for Caltrans because it was due today.
Yeah,
How
yes,
long is that extension?
until after the policy board. So we would take it to them on the day after. I think it's March 16th.
So I'm well, my one comment, yes, but let me just say what's going through my head is I don't know that we'd want to send a document to Caltrans for them to tell us something's wrong. That doesn't, I'm not sure that would be an advisable practice. And I know Karen, I can't pronounce her last name very well. I know Karen when she worked at Stancog, so she has a lot of knowledge of this budget, and she was very well regarded in that respect. So she raised some interesting points that honestly I didn't know half of what she said. So
Well, I think one thing that we could do is maybe sit down with Karen and then just do a thorough review of the document to make sure that there's no additional changes. I mean, this is the third iteration of this amendment, and we've all reviewed it. And if there's any changes, then we will let you know. But I think the information that we have on there is as good as it's going to get, given the restrictive documents that we have. We have, as you know, haven't closed our books for 2 years, so going after an updated OW or an updated ICAP is not something that we can do right now. We've also asked the board to approve the classification and salary ranges, which we haven't gotten, so we don't even have a basis for updating our ICAP. So there's definitely some challenges here, and so using the old ICAP, I think, was justifiable because that's all we have. I mean, I don't know what else to say. We've all reviewed it.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that she was asking was, how did you come up with $5.4 million in surplus? Because it appears that you're using the CMAQ and REAP funding, which is not free money. It's controlled money. You can't use it as part of your surplus.
Yeah, so those are pass-through monies, but they belong in the category in which we put them in. So
I have a similar comment. When you're representing your fund balance and not breaking out by program, you don't know what your true operating factors are, right? So we could see one fund potentially going under while the other ones are surplus. And within this, maybe that was in the worksheet. I did email back to COG saying I couldn't get the worksheet either. It was then sent to me at about 1 o'clock, so I wasn't able to get into it. Maybe that's in the worksheet and explains all that, but I wasn't able to get to that too prior to the meeting. So maybe that information is in that worksheet. Is that fund balance broken up by category in the worksheet that's being discussed now?
yes.
So yeah, it's not giving a clear overall program specific fund balance. It's giving you a total.
Right, and this is the Caltrans form. We'll also be doing a budget we'll be bringing a budget to the board in April. So it'll be a little bit more clear, something that you might be a little bit more accustomed to seeing than the way this is laid out for Caltrans.
And since you have an adopted pay scale, I mean, people are getting increases, step increases, things of that nature. You base it off what those salaries are for that period. You don't
Right.
need to update or change salary scales to be able to update that number.
Yeah, we used the current pay rates. We didn't update the pay rates based on anything that was brought to the board and that was not passed.
But you're looking at prior years, which salaries have changed in that point in time due to step increases.
Yes, so yes, we did adjust for that.
And look for that information, still update your ICAP.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, I'll open this to the public. Public. All right, bring it back. Thoughts?
I agree with you, sir. I don't think we should send this off with the anticipation that Caltrans is going to kick it back and fix it for us, because that's not their job. They only work with the numbers we have. So I would say hold off and get the numbers right and everything.
So I'm balancing the need to give the information to Caltrans with ensuring it's accurate. I think one of the things that needs to happen is we need to make sure that those questions are answered.
And we can do that, but I would just add that the member of the public doesn't have access to our current books. So it's not fair for them to draw a lot of these conclusions that they drew. So I think one of the things we could do is have a meeting with her and actually ask her for the details behind what she is referring to and asking about. And we're happy to respond to this group with a summary of that conversation.
Yeah, that would be fine. And I think the other part of this, though, that's also challenged for us as a committee to move this forward is a member of the public commented on it who wasn't able to access it till this morning, right? And so now that's raising additional questions that I think need to have some clarity into it. So I like that plan, and I think maybe our motion is something along the lines of not necessarily approving the document, but sending it for completion until the answers are, or sending it to the policy board once the answers are complete, but not giving our approval. Does that make sense? An approval
Yes,
without approval.
I think what we can do is, after we double check the numbers, send it to the executive committee and the policy board without your recommendation. Can we do that?
That'd be, well, hold on.
It doesn't look like it's an action item for us. It just says discussion and consider information, which is
No
what-
motion?
which is
No,
what the other
it-
two have said also.
And that's one of the problems here, that none of these are
That's definitely a
it's
problem.
all discussion. It shouldn't be discussion items. Because I asked specifically last time we can break it up, but there is no action items on this entire agenda for us to make a decision on.
Well,
This should be a
D
decision.
and E have motions, motion recommends.
Well, but it's under discussion.
Okay, so
So
This-
that's the confusing part.
Well, I think a couple of things then. Maybe, Jean, what you need to do is ask Caltrans for another extension and we come back next month.
Understood.
that can be our motion. Anybody want to make it?
So I'll motion that we have this brought back to us next month with the correct numbers
If they're incorrect.
if they're incorrect. And then have it as an action item, but move forward with make sure all the numbers are correct before we send it off to Caltrans or the executive board.
Can you amend it to ask staff to reach out to Karen and see if she'd be willing to participate? Obviously, she's not an employee of Stancock. She does not have to.
I think we can meet with her and share the information, but I'm not supportive of having a member of the public come and represent an item that they don't have access to the base information on.
I agree, but what I would like she gave a lot of information. And it'd be nice if we got more of a formal conversation so that you can have a better idea of what she's trying to say to see, that way you can double check your numbers.
Sure, so we can have a meeting with her if she's open to having a meeting. And if she's not, then I'm going to ask her if she could write a letter to this body that
Yes.
summarizes her concerns and to us so that we can respond specifically to them. I wasn't aware that the link wasn't available to the public, but it certainly isn't fair to come to a public meeting and pepper staff with a bunch of questions when they don't have any way of responding to the specifics. So, but I am supportive of having a follow-up meeting with her, and we can double check to make sure that we have our numbers correct, and we'll come back to this body with any changes next month with a memo that asks you to make a motion.
Okay. What's the motion? No motion, because it's not an action item, but that's kind of, you're here, that's the direction that you're here.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
All right, 5D, motion to recommend the policy board adopt by resolution and update to accounting, travel, and credit card policy.
You might recall that the policy board responded to the grand jury comments about our accounting policies, promising to make some changes to them. I would say that this is the beginning of some of the changes that we're making, but that they are specific to that letter. And I am working on updating the accounting policies because there's a lot of missing bits and pieces. So I'll come back to this group hopefully next month with revised accounting policies before we go to the policy board. So this is, we hired Norma Ortega, who was the former CFO of Caltrans, and she specifically looked at our travel and credit card policies. And so they have been significantly altered to add additional controls and limitations. Some of the highlights are adopting federal GSA per diem rates for meals and for lodging with exceptions specifically approved by the executive director when it's a conference hotel or something related to that. We also, I added this because it wasn't in there, but limitations on the board would have to approve any foreign travel. Then we also establish specifics associated with rental cars, with training and continuing education, specifically mandating, I'm not sure why it wasn't in the original policy, itemized receipts before anybody is reimbursed, and also an travel authorization process. On credit cards, again, there are limitations on what you can use the credit cards for, specifically excluding things like alcohol, and ensuring that a receipt is submitted for each transaction, and policies about misuse and reimbursement and revocation of those credit cards, and the defined responsibilities for staff members. And I am happy to answer any questions about the changes. They weren't that exhaustive, but I'm assuming you went through them, and we're happy to take any comments forward.
I think the only one that I had was who approves the executive director's travel and spending?
Yeah, that is, something that maybe we should address in here. Maybe we should have the
Board chair.
finance manager.
The board chair.
That's hard because you know what it's like trying to get.
Well, yeah, well,
But,
for example, my mayor approves my travel,
okay,
and it's
the board chair approving travel. Okay, so travel authorization, okay.
I think it just provides another layer of protection of that level of expense. And it can't be a subordinate to the person who is doing the
I
travel.
did it my last agency.
Oh, really?
But then I'm not a very pushy boss.
That's just a recommendation.
No, that's good. I
I-
appreciate that.
But
Okay.
There has to
And
be
that's
checks
the
and balances.
authorization, right?
Correct. There just has to be checks and
Okay.
balances of everybody, including.
Sure
the
thing.
director.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make that change.
Any other comments or questions?
Go ahead.
A comment I have, I didn't, maybe it's in here and I'm missing it. What is the base of the credit card limits? Is that established as a table within the policy? I didn't see that. So, and usually there's a base, right? Let's say single day 500, 12 month 1,000, just using numbers. So is there a base established? Then usually you'd have an exception rule where somebody signs off an exception for an individual that has a higher limit. Are you establishing that? Or is everybody, how do we come up with that rhyme or reason? Or what the numbers look like?
So, yeah, we don't have that. And one of the reasons is because we use the credit card for things like paying utilities and office supplies, and those can be kind of high.
So I just reestablished our
Yeah.
policy. And yeah, you set a base, but you have the exception. And they just give you a description on what that exception is. Primarily, it's usually they're a heavy purchaser. But it gives an understanding of what the levels are so everyone knows.
Could you send me what you actually have? I mean, I guess the one thing is I wouldn't want it to limit our ability to do business.
It does not. It does
Okay.
not. What it does is set a base, a general understanding of what the levels are.
Okay.
But there's always an exception to the rule because you have one staff member, whoever that may be, is a heavier purchaser or purchasing for the whole department. So there's always exceptions to the rule, but there's always a general understanding of where they're starting. And then you kind of go from there.
Okay. So that I would appreciate that. That'd be great. Thank
I'll
you.
definitely do that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one just real quick. On 9.9, last one, leave with pay may be granted for required training. When did you grant leave with pay?
So sorry,
Or
9.9.
Number 9.9.
Yeah. And it says, which one?
Leave with, very last one, right before 9.10. Leave with pay may be granted for required training. What is that? How is that? Because if you're going to training, usually you're going to be paid, I thought, during your work week. So why would you have leave with pay?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It seems like a strange thing to put there. Let me double check that with Norma and maybe we can refine that. Okay.
Great. Any other questions, comments?
No questions. Just one thing that I would recommend is if you're going to bring a resolution for approval, a draft resolution should be in the packet.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely do that. We just don't typically do it for this body.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I'll open it to the public.
Hi, my name's Carolyn Newman. I'm on the board for the Taxpayer Association, and I was on the 24-25 civil grand jury. I was reviewing this today. There's a lot of great stuff in here. I'm really excited to see that. I do have a couple suggestions and notes. In, what is this section? 9.3. The last one, I think it's page 52, losses due to personal negligence. I'm hoping that's referring to insurance claims or something like that. Also, in 9.6, I would add something about no room service because that seemed to be a pervasive problem. I should add on the fact that I've made many PRA requests since my service is over, so I have these documents actively in my possession. Also, establishing checking in no sooner than one day before and leaving no more longer than one day after a conference. You know, sometimes if there's an early start, maybe you fly in the day before and sleep and then attend, but I feel like that needs to be established. 9.7, there's nothing that specifically speaks to DoorDash or Grubhub to personal addresses. I wonder if that wouldn't be prudent. Also, for transportation in general, 9.8 as a bubble, there were several livery cars that were ordered that were very expensive. The lowest was $325 to go from Modesto to an airport, and the most expensive was about $500, and there were several of these in excess of $10,000. I would love to see that livery, except for taxis and ride shares, be restricted. How many days in advance of acquiring a rental car can they have it before the event for which it's needed? Because they have to return it immediately after, but it doesn't say how long before the event that they can acquire it. And typically, You have an event that starts on a Saturday, ends on a Tuesday. You pick up the car Friday because you're going to be driving first thing Saturday morning, maybe. Also, this doesn't mention anything about luggage fees or other airplane related expenses, Wi-Fi, luggage fees, VIP lounges. In section 9.10, it talks about receipts are required for lodging, airfare, rental cars, taxi, shuttle, parking fees over $5. It doesn't mention the food receipts. Now, I know immediately above that, it says you have to have an itemized receipt for any expense over $10. But I think reiterating that in the list immediately after that would be helpful. And I think there's one thing that this misses, and that is the earned frequent flyer miles for such credit cards. Are the employees allowed to use them? Points programs, things like that. Are employees allowed to use them? If so, the federal government a few years ago passed a law that says employees can use them as government workers, but they have to pay the taxes on them, making sure that employees are aware of that if they're going to be responsible for that. And that's all I have.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public? Seeing none. Did I hear you say you're bringing this back next month? That you're bringing it back next month? Oh, okay. Got it.
Make those changes and bring it to the executive committee for approval. But taking under consideration, you're going to send me information about your credit card policy?
Won't be able to update it though, because you're approving it now, but I am happy to share it with you, right?
No, but you can approve it with those
Yeah,
changes.
we
but,
can approve
you know,
with the
and then also the other changes that were requested, although we still need to figure out what that leave with pay may be granted for required training. And I'll better define that, or we'll eliminate it because it seems like an odd thing. And then, you know, when you start reviewing a document 100 times, you stop seeing things. So, and then you wanted us to add travel authorization for the executive director must be approved by the chair, board chair. So with those changes.
Any other comments or questions from the committee?
Are you in a hurry to get this done? Is it mandatory that we do changes, or could you bring it back next month?
So the only deadline is that our consultant that we hired her contract expires at the end of March, but I suppose we could make these changes and bring them back, sure.
Well, the other thing too is this isn't set in stone, right? It can always be amended, and having some policy is better than having no policy. So that's kind of my thought. I thought about that, Mike, but then I went to, if we don't have any of this in place, we should put it in place.
And you're going to see this again anyway, because the finance policies in here are very vague and they don't really reflect our processes anymore. And so I'm going to bring this back with additional financial policies, and it'll be a red line version. So any changes from today, you'll see anyway.
I agree. These documents are meant to be living documents. I mean, you can go, there was a lot of comments and you go far into the thing and where it kind of goes backwards, right? Because you're kind of over-sensitive. As long as the oversight is there, once they complete the travel, they complete the process and review the documentation afterwards, your controls are still there. So,
and it just in response to the member of the public that commented on this, travel has to be approved in advance. So that's really 100% of the controls, and expenses related to $300 and $400 Uber rides are not going to be approved because they're not reimbursable. And I think we've established a budget process now and recognition that we need to be a lot better stewards of the revenues that we have. And the questions about food is not allowed. You get a per diem amount for food while you're traveling based on the GSA numbers. The same thing with the mileage. So things like room service and sending food to your home, those things are clearly not allowed and they would not be reimbursable. So, it is the point of this whole process to make sure that we have guardrails around how we spend money and that the way we spend money is reimbursable because we don't have a general fund.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to make the necessary updates that were discussed in today's meeting and move forward to present to the executive board and make, with the understanding this is a living document and be revisited.
A second. All right, got a motion from Series, a second from Turlock. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All righty. 5E, motion to recommend the policy board adopt by resolution the amendment to employee policies and procedures handbook.
Thank you. Monica is away. She had a death in the family, so I'm going to handle this one. We were both sort of overseeing this process. Again, this is about responding to the grand jury comments and really tightening up our policies associated with, sort of the impetus was the whole vacation cash out policy. But we hired a law firm to do a more comprehensive review. But I think the primary changes are, but the pecking order of how we reduce staff, which was sort of omitted from the original policy in its current form. Again, vacation accrual and vacation cash out, which I made actually stricter because our budget it's not a reimbursable expense. And it's also very difficult to budget against someone cashing out 500 hours when they're still working here. So it's now limited to 2 weeks and a requirement that they must take a vacation before they leave. We did create a bridge for existing staff because so many of them have accumulated vacation hours. Let's see. There's also specific policy addressing performance evaluations. We had in the past had it every 12 months, and now we've changed it to 12 months on the person's hire date instead of all at the end of the year. We did include the salary increase that we talked about as part of the classification and salary ranges that I brought to you last month. And instead of having merit increases, again, which is very, very difficult for us to budget against, we're recommending that instead that we provide merit raises up to 5% and that the cost of living adjustments are eliminated, but rather the board would increase the salary ranges. So those people at the bottom of the range and those people at the very top of the range would get a bump based on a COLA, but everybody within that range any increases would be based on merit. We also capped the retirement health benefits, which used to be for life, now to 65. And then we made some administrative revisions and cleanup throughout associated with basically updating new policies around maternity leave, paternity leave, and victims of violence. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I had just one. So employees also get management leave if they're in the management?
They do.
Is that cashable as well?
It's not.
Okay.
And they lose it at the end of the year,
All right.
90 hours.
The only comment I'm going to make is I think the 500 hours is excessive.
Still excessive.
That is a lot. City of Modesto's policy is 2 times your annual accrual rate, and that has a cap. I mean, that's a huge liability to keep on your books.
It is, and that is, it was maintained at 800 hours. I cut it down to 500 hours. I know. And, I'm like torn between, making sure that we're taking care of our staff and at the same time, understanding how we budget against stuff like that. They can't cash out that much anymore, so that helps. The biggest challenge is when people quit. And the last year where we had some senior staff leave, it depleted our reserves. So, and it's not reimbursable. And I think the finance people are really super clear about that now. And maybe moving forward, we have tighter and tighter restrictions around this as we experience what this does.
How's vacation accrued?
Um,
Is it like based on years of service? Is it?
So it is based on the number of years of service.
You get-
Managers get more than regular staff. And it starts at 3 weeks, I think, and then is accrued based, I don't know, maybe Jean, do you know it off the top of your head? I can look through here.
On page 91 of
2
the.
weeks, sorry. Fine.
Okay. I guess my other comment is if you're allowing up to 500 hours of vacation, I question the need for management leave. That's a lot. I think our cap is 400. Ours might be 360. Well, maybe
Ours are 360.
Ours is 4.
Ours is 4.
Yeah, well, we already went from 800 to 500.
Yeah,
Maybe in the
that's a good
next
change.
iteration, we go further down. I mean, I think part of what will drive this is in a time where we have no reserves and somebody is cashing out their vacation and we have no way to pay them,
Yeah.
will definitely be a driver for future consideration. But I think, I felt, given how much the reserve was before, that going below 500 was kind of draconian.
But
So we're just
people
making
that have it now
incremental.
are grandfathered in, right? So if you, let's say you have 8 right now.
I'm sorry.
If you have 8 on your books right now and you're a current employee, you're grandfathered in, correct? Or do they lose it?
There's a bridge policy and they have, I think, 3 years to get it down to 500.
So basically, I
And
think,
they're not going to accrue anymore if they don't get there.
so basically what I'm trying to say is it'll kind of, bridge the gap at 5, but it really impacts the future employees because they'll be hitting the caps. Or your current employees have a bridge of a couple of years to go burn it down.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
It
changing it to
affects
4 is not too
everybody,
bad.
but it's a transition period to get it down to 500 hours before we stop accruing. And there is one employee that has to take vacation now.
Yeah, policies for employees are really, they are living documents. They're not updated very constant. Unless we're going to say we're going to bring it back to the board every year, which for a handbook, you really don't bring back often. Where the other policies and procedures are more financial and change with the financial natures.
Well, it should be something that someone looks at periodically. And so we do have a manager of HR now that, that's her responsibility to make sure that we are at least, updating it in accordance with statute, right? Because a lot of times these things get stale and they become against the law. And then at that time, make a more comprehensive review.
So one thing in that essence, you can put in the document that this will be brought to the board, the policies, within a minimum of every couple of years or whatever it is. So that retains that, useful life and it is updated periodically.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
If I may, Chair. Not anything, and I know the culture of StanCog is changing currently with a lot of, in good ways. I just want to make sure that a culture to use that vacation is being developed within StanCog, because you don't get to 800 hours if you are using those hours or wanting or allowed to use those hours, and that may be in the past, and I just want to make sure that is addressed, the culture
Just
of vacation use.
that making sure that people feel comfortable taking vacation. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I know that people feel comfortable taking vacation now. I think it's essential for finance to take vacation, even though we're having crunch time, because you want to have finance away from their desk to see if there's any malfeasance, right? That's just standard government policy. I think moving forward, and I'm going to announce who the next executive director is. I think that you'll find she's going to be very similar sort of mindset, that she is a fair boss. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So the chair was talking earlier about, the liability and unfunded stuff. So do we know what the unfunded accrued liability is that StanCog's running right now?
For vacation?
No.
No, for everything?
For StanCog,
Um,
because you're paying so much for retirement.
right.
And now you're going to pay so much for retirement health benefits.
So,
How
we
much-
will have that information to you next month when we bring you the draft agendas for budget, sorry, a draft budget. And, our recommendation is that we sell the building. So I'll give you a little
Preview.
advance news about that. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that the vacation and a lot of the other things that were expended over the last year have really just depleted our reserves. And those are only earned by our indirect costs that we capture. And right now we're at a very reduced staffing level, which means that we're also don't have a lot of senior staff that we're billing against. And as a consequence to that, we're not accruing indirect costs at the level that we need to restore that reserve. So we're really aware of the circumstances that we're in, and we have policy and solutions for the board to consider. We basically we're going to come back. I know that we're not really talking about this agenda item, and so we're violating the Brown Act, but we're going to come back to the board. We have two scenarios, and we're going to ask them to recommend them that they adopt one of those scenarios. And then we have a lot of policy trade-offs for them to consider about what we're not going to be going forward with in terms of our expenses. So, yeah.
And is there anything in this manual that encourages people to work? Because if I'm working from home 4 days a week, I don't want to take vacation.
Well, in my report to the new executive director, I recommend that she evaluate our work from home policy. The policy is basically everybody needs to have explicit permission to work from home. And I don't think working from home all week is good for an agency's culture. And I have brought some people back in, but there are people that actually live in remote locations as well. So it's something that I think that, again, that I'm going to encourage her to look at, and then she can decide, moving forward, working with the board on how to make sure that that's happening. But yeah.
All right, thank those comments. Any other from the committee? All right, open to the public.
Hi, Carolyn Newman again. I'm really pleased to see a lot of changes in here. I have seen this handbook from front to back and all variants of it. I just want to point out a few things, but largely the changes I'm a huge fan of. They look fantastic. It seems like a much more supportive and a lot of just outright visibility instead of requiring the oversight, and I really appreciate that. Section 1.2, it's always bothered me. Marital status isn't in that very obvious list, and it's a copy of the federal list, like directly, except for the words marital status. For equal employment opportunity. It's page 82 of your packet. Let's see, page 101. I'm looking at section 3.5.2, management leave. I've seen a different version of this same manual where it says that it's 80 hours of leave for management, not 90. And I don't see any board agenda or anything where that was ever formally approved of. I looked through all the minutes and I cannot find formal approval. Also, it does say in that paragraph, sentence right after the red lines begins, employees may receive pay up to 60 hours in lieu of management leave. So you can cash it out. It just requires executive director approval. Also, I wonder if management leave is different from executive leave because there are contracts with general counsel and the former executive director that refer to executive leave, which has 80 hours referred to, which then you're looking at the vacation, sick pay, compensatory, float holidays, all of that. And then last but not least, on page 147 of the packet, Article 14, this is the new addition that was brought in September, October. Step 2, proposed amendments will be approved by the StanCog Policy Board for approval. As an action item, please, because the original, the 2018 employee handbook was approved as a consent item and was not included in the packet. There is no original official version of this 2021 manual from 2021. It was approved as a consent item. So could we have it as an action item, please, just for visibility's sake? Thank you.
Any other members of the public? All right, I'll bring it back. Any further comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Stanislaus County move to approve.
Second, Waterford.
I got a motion from Stanislaus County and a second from Waterford. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none. 6A through F. Any comments or questions from the committee on any of those items? All right, seeing none, we'll go to 7, interim executive director report.
Thank you. On March 18th, the board is going to appoint our new executive director. Her name is Amber Collins. Some of you may already know her. Amber comes with a great deal of experience and excellent credentials. She has a bachelor's of science in agribusiness, a master's of science in engineering, and a master's in city and regional planning, all from Cal Poly. She served as both the executive director and planning director for the Calaveras Council of Governments, and she has been now with Mark Thomas since 2022, serving as the senior transportation planning manager, and then more recently, the planning and funding division manager. So we're all looking forward to welcoming Amber. And this may be actually my last meeting with all of you, but we'll see. I may stay on for the transition. The policy board has formed a Measure L ad hoc committee. It is comprised of members Wright, Hernandez, Lopez, Graham, and Glazell. And our first meeting is this Friday at 12:30. And that concludes my report.
All right, we will move on to agenda item 8, member reports. All right, well, if this is your last meeting, Kate, we'll just thank you for your time here and your service. We certainly appreciate you taking this on and making some of the improvements that we've all kind of seen. Any other member reports?
I just say I didn't do it alone.
All righty, if that's it, I will call the meeting adjourned at 4:06.